Welcome back to the On Adventure podcast. I'm Josh Self, and I'll be your host. My guest today is Steve Bradshaw. Steve is a guy that was introduced to me by a previous guest on the podcast and somebody that I had a great conversation with. It was a really interesting arc of his life to talk through, going from growing up in West Virginia to becoming a championship swimmer in college, starting a business from scratch, and then seeing that all the way through to an early exit, and then finding himself at a point in his life as an empty nester where he had the time and the ability to take 3 or 4 months and go through hike a long distance trail. And you'll hear the thread through all of his stories about how his comfort zone was continually expanded and continually stretched to allow him to end up doing 2,200 miles without really much issue to speak of. There certainly were challenges along the way, but make no mistake about it, hiking 2,200 miles on the Appalachian Trail is not for the faint of heart. It is not easy, no matter what the conditions are. And as you'll hear in his story, he makes it all the way through and has some great pictures from the very top of Mount Katahdin. So I think it'll be a story that all of us can relate to, both from the beginning to the end, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with Steve Bradshaw. Steve Bradshaw, welcome to the On Adventure podcast. And we got, I think, several things to touch on here. You're already downplaying your exploits in comparison to some of the other people you've listened to, and I'm going to just stop you there because I know we've talked enough in the last few minutes. I know there's a lot of gold in what you've accomplished. And the goal of this conversation, of any of these, is to interview the everyday explorer, somebody that is finding the thing that they're pushing for, and then find out why you do that. So welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Josh. I'm excited to be here.
So let's start just with a quick introduction of, a little bit about yourself, where you're at, and what you do.
All right. I'm Steve Bradshaw, live over in Western North Carolina. I've lived here for 25 years and grew up in West Virginia and started enjoying the outdoors with my father and brother a lot through hunting. And my dad would, introduce us to backpacking when I think I was 8 years old. So, and he was, an avid outdoorsman, read all the time and lived it, and was an Eagle Scout back in like the 50s. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So where did you grow up backpacking in West Virginia?
We didn't do a lot of backpacking in West Virginia. We would go down to Virginia where we had some family land where we hunted, and where my, dad hunted, brought my brother and I hunting for deer in Highland County, Virginia. And we would camp there a lot, not really backpack, but he took us on the Appalachian Trail near Afton Mountain. I believe that's probably in the Shenandoahs. It might just be a little south of the Shenandoahs, but it wasn't a super hard section, and I think I had a backpack with a sleeping bag in it by itself and nothing else.
That's all you carried?
Yeah, I don't remember carrying a lot of weight, and I was pretty darn small for an 8-year-old. Yeah. I was only 8. So
I think the first time that I had ever backpacked for any multiple days on the Appalachian Trail, and I took my son with me, I think he was 8 or 9 or 10, somewhere in that range. And he had a smaller pack, but he had more than a sleeping bag in there. But my trail name is now Sherpa. And it's nice. Because of that trip, because with every mile that went along, more came off his bag and went into or onto my bag. And by the end of it, I was carrying most of it. So, like a good Sherpa. So what's your trail name?
Mine is Tadpole.
Okay.
And, not the toughest sounding name, according to my wife, but, a friend of mine hosted a dinner, he and his wife, Ed Lilly. He's a hunter and a kayaker friend of mine. And he hosted a dinner, and, at the end of the dinner, I said he wanted to go around the table and everybody tried to give me a trail name. Okay. And his explanation for Tadpole was I had been a swimmer, and that was much of my identity, and I was trying to grow my legs. So,
That actually makes a ton of sense just
yeah,
based on what you had just explained to me before we started
yeah.
into this. But you were a championship swimmer at NC State University and have continued. So did you compete after you graduated, or did it just become more of a thing that you did for fun?
After I graduated, I swam one more year, just went to US Nationals. I had qualified for trials for
Okay.
92, but that was 91, the year after I had used up my eligibility. And so that was my decision process. Like, do I train 2 more years and avoid work to do trials? And the
Yeah.
answer when I went to nationals was, I think you ought to go to work. They only take the top two for the Olympics, and
Oh, really?
I think I was 14th or somewhere in there.
Gotcha.
So that was a far cry from second, but I still enjoyed swimming to this day, and I swim masters
Okay.
swimming for the Asheville Masters, and I usually do a meet. Wow, I would say every year, but it's turned out to be every 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so
And backstroke is your event. Is that still what you do when you do the Masters meets?
yeah, I mixed it up a little bit, but I tend to be more successful at backstroke. A little bit I am in freestyle, and that's
Gotcha.
kind of what I did in college too. So
So the Olympics is wrapping up as we're having this conversation right now. It'll be over by the time I get this released. But do you watch the swimming events
oh
for the
yeah,
Olympics? What
oh
do you
yeah,
think
I was
about it?
up at 4:45 every day
Were you
during the
really?
swimming part, and
Okay.
they kicked off at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So I'm still a big fan. So I
What was the most impressive thing you saw this year in the Olympics?
Oh, certainly the mile for the guys. Well, Katie Ledecky's always impressive, but
Yeah.
there's no surprise there because we expect her to be the best, and she's the best. But there's a Florida swimmer by the name of Bobby Fink
Hmm.
that went out. So he's known for going out kind of slow and then coming from behind and winning. And he just went out ahead of everybody, never gave him a chance. I spent the whole time worried that he was going to die, but he set the world record in the 1500,
Oh
which in
my gosh.
swimming we call the mile,
Yeah.
which is, yeah,
That's a long way to swim all
yeah,
out.
yeah. And
Did he
his
fade or did he hold it the whole time?
No, in fact, at the 1,000, he started dropping a little bit of time. I mean, his pace was perfect. He was swimming like 29 twos, 29 threes the whole way, eat per 50, so 58s, but per 100. And he started dropping like about 2 or 2 tenths per 50 at the 1,000, and it just crushed everybody's soul
Yeah.
in the pool, which is the way you got
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what Ledecky does so good. They were showing some of her split times and the consistency over that long. I mean, she's off by a little bit here and a little bit, but it was almost exactly the same with
Oh yeah,
every 50. I mean, and I
and
guess that's
those two
what,
train together too.
oh, do they really?
Katie
Okay.
Ledecky and Bobby Fink train together, and she credits Bobby a lot with how well she has swum and maintained. This is her fourth Olympics.
Yeah.
So,
That's cool. What do you
yeah,
think about the Frenchman?
he's amazing. He has an American coach who's
They're the
also Michael
best.
Phelps' coach
Yeah.
at Arizona State, and it does seem like we're in the colleges around the United States. We're training the world's swimmers.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I feel about that. It is
Yeah.
what it is. I think we're the only colleges in the world that have swimming, and it's a great place for
Oh,
people to
is it
swim
really?
that are
I didn't realize
Americans
that.
and international.
Okay.
So a lot of the best programs, you probably have 20 guys on the team, and the best programs are probably going to have 5 international swimmers.
Did you swim with any international at
Oh
state
yeah.
at the time?
My roommate, Adam Fitzgerald, he was an English swimmer. There was an English swimmer before all of us named Duncan Goodhue that got a gold medal in breaststroke in the '80 Olympics, the one that we boycotted.
Okay.
And there were some Greek swimmers, and we had a Peru swimmer when I was swimming. Yeah, there were. Yeah, come to think of it, there was quite a
Quite a
few
few.
back then as well.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. And
Yeah,
swimming is I know enough about swimming that if your mechanics are right, it's a lot easier to swim fast and long distances than if your mechanics are really bad.
for
Uh,
sure.
but still, it is a sport where you are in the pool for a lot of time. You're doing the same thing over and over again. It's a bit not just monotonous, but I mean, it's a lot of hard work for a really long time. Did I guess my question is what made you want to get into doing something like that?
But that's an easy question. My older brother did it, so I wanted to do everything he did.
I see.
So, and he was a swimmer at Ohio State, and then transferred and swam Division III for Case Western, and
Okay.
he's in their athletic Hall of Fame, and he's a real good butterflyer. We were very competitive growing up, but luckily, God made him a butterflyer and me a
Yeah.
backstroker, so we didn't really compete in the same events that
Yeah. That
much.
way you can still have a relationship and not hate each other.
Yeah, sometimes. And
Sometimes.
he actually joined me on the trail.
Did he really?
Yeah, he joined me. He joined me, and we've backpacked a lot together.
Okay.
He loves the outdoors. He was a great shot in hunting, and he kind of gave that up. And his wife passed away at a young age, and there was a great book about the Appalachian Trail that my wife heard about, got it. I read it, and then gave it to my brother. And I can't remember the author's name, but the title was Hiking Through,
Hmm.
and it was a guy healing and grieving, and his trail name was Apostle. His name was Paul,
Oh,
and
interesting.
he was kind of going through his grieving, and so the first time I tried to encourage my brother to backpack because he needed some outlets, I thought, when his wife passed, and he also became a empty nester at the same time. Both his
Oh my
kids.
gosh.
Yeah. So
Wow.
so I got him a master's swimming membership, and even like paid for the first 6 months. And that's
Mhm.
out of character for me because I'm cheap. And then I also tried to get him into like backpacking, and I've since tried to get him back into hunting too. But he joined me in Virginia 10 years ago after his wife passed. That's not 10 years. It's more like 7 years ago. And
Okay.
he had not exercised in probably 10 years.
And just showed up on the trail.
Well, I encouraged him. I about
Yeah.
killed him too,
Yeah.
because he is taking care of a sick wife, and also,
Yeah.
the a single parent basically when his wife was really sick. So he didn't really have any time to exercise. So, and I took him out
Oh
McAfee
yeah.
Knob,
Yeah.
and that section right there, sometime in the middle of summer.
Oh,
Yeah,
jeez.
wrong. So anyway, he's okay now, but he got heat exhaustion
Yeah.
and all that. So
Well, from
uh,
that parking lot, if you went from the parking lot up to the knob, that is like a relentless uphill for I don't know how many miles, but it's
and
pretty
then we
tough.
went on to Daleville.
Okay.
So we did not. I think they call that. There's so many things that are triple crowns, but
Right.
Tinker Cliff, McAfee Knob, and then also
Dragon's
Dragon's
Tooth.
Tooth.
Yeah.
That's a triple crown there. We didn't do Dragon's Tooth. We started at the parking lot
Yeah.
south of McAfee Knob. So, and
Yeah.
then we repeated that this year, and he did great. He's in great shape. I'm here to say, and it was cool enough, and I didn't almost kill my brother this time.
That's
So,
good. I did that section from the parking lot with my son. It was a couple years ago, but we did it in early December
yeah.
when there were no crowds
Oh,
and
perfect.
it was cooler. So
Oh,
yeah, it was nice. It was I don't think I have the picture in here, but I've got the normal picture everybody takes from the knob and
right,
overlooking down into Tinker Cliffs. But he went back on his spring break last year and with a group of guys and they did the Triple Crown.
right.
And so that was pretty cool to hear about. But
That's a
so
great section.
yeah, it is. And the sections I've done have been between basically Georgia to almost to Shenandoah. I haven't done anything north of there.
Right.
But I understand the terrain changes pretty drastically. Probably on the other side of the Shenandoah, or would you say it changes a lot in the Shenandoah?
Other than the Priest, I don't think they call it the Priest Mountain,
Uh-huh.
and I think it's called Three Cliffs. Shenandoahs are, and most all of Virginia is pretty easy
Hmm.
relative to the Smokies and the Whites and Maine and so forth. I I I don't know how, maybe I did 6 days where I went over 30 miles a day,
Okay.
and probably 3 or 4 of those were in the Shenandoahs or the
Gotcha.
middle of Virginia and
It
Shenandoahs.
was just more doable.
Oh, it was like someone was out there mulching the trail. It was beautiful. Well maintained,
Well,
nice views and great water.
yeah,
It's a great introductory portion of the trail, I'd say, the Shenandoahs. So,
that's good to know.
yeah.
Now, how did you get from college swimmer to, and we haven't said this specifically, but you through hiked the Appalachian Trail earlier this year.
Right.
And
We
so,
left the
yeah, how did you get from those one point to the other?
Well, after college, there was one friend of mine, a friend of a friend, hiked the Appalachian Trail, and I peppered him with questions back in the 90s.
Hmm.
And my father taking me on the Appalachian Trail early, and then hiking with my brother and some other friends and doing sections. I've wanted to do the a through hike of the Appalachian Trail for quite some time.
Okay.
And my wife Dale, with a D, she's very cool, and she was very supportive of me doing this. She's heard me talk about this for a long, long time. So, you know, it I it was hard for me to make this happen with I have 2 kids. They're I have a son that's 25 that lives in Avon, Colorado,
Oh
and a
yeah.
daughter, he's Charlie, and a daughter, Sophia, that lives in Greenville. She's 23, and my son he's much more the outdoorsman than I am, but because
What's he
of
doing in Avon?
graduation and so forth. He's an engineer. He did mechanical engineering at NC State, just like
Okay.
me, and he's had 2 jobs there. The first job was HVAC design.
Hmm.
Didn't really enjoy sitting in front of a computer all day. So, and he became an owner's agent for a great company out there and building these really nice high end houses.
Oh,
When
cool.
I say high end, it's like,
Yeah.
you could fit my house times 5 inside of one of these houses.
And he's in Avon, Colorado, so it's hard to
And
beat
yeah,
that.
that was his dream. So Avon, if for listeners that are not familiar, is right beside Beaver Creek
Yeah.
and right beside Vail, Colorado.
Yeah.
So he was an avid skier, trout fisherman, hunter, kayaker, and great place to live. So,
So we've got a 20-year gap here where the kids come along, and it sounds like your love for the outdoors and doing just about anything you can to be outside. It sounds like you brought your son along with that. If he's got
oh
that,
yeah,
uh, playing out in his life at this point, is that just part of what you guys made your family build around, was being outside?
we did a fair bit of camping, the whole family, but my son was in scouts and
Okay.
became an Eagle Scout, and he had a tremendous scout leader that, and his favorite thing to do, that scout leader, Walter Carpenter, was his favorite thing to do was hike and
Mm.
backpack. So he planned a hike or backpack every month.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, exactly. Not always successfully, because for everyone you plan, 1 out of 3 gets canceled because of some sort of weather or
Yeah.
not enough adults or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, my son also went to a middle school in Asheville called French Broad River Academy,
Okay.
and they canoed every Wednesday in the fall and spring, and they skied every Wednesday in the winter.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Where were
That's
those schools when we were
where
there?
was that? Oh my gosh.
So,
Man,
and it was very
my middle
affordable.
school was in the hood. Yeah, we weren't canoeing or skiing anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
But after college, I worked for about 6 years. I lived in Breckenridge, Colorado after the year after I got married. So, that instilled a lot of outdoor activity. You know, I think that year I skied 110 days.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
and I wasn't
So,
that great a skier. So
well, why did you leave Breckenridge?
it ran out of money,
Well,
and
that'll do it.
the company I was working for back east was kind of falling apart.
Okay.
So I came back, you know, ran out of money, and then that's when I thought it would be a good idea to start a company. So I
Okay.
took a loan from the bank. Suckers.
Are you still
And
running that company or is that?
no, I sold that company. A private equity group out of Chicago approached me when I turned 50,
Uh-huh.
and we were in a really cool niche in the healthcare industry,
Okay.
and so I sold that company 6 years ago.
How about that?
And then I had a contract for a couple years. I stayed a little bit longer because we did services for hospital oxygen systems, piped oxygen systems. And through COVID, you know, our guys were getting hammered. And we also did air quality, ventilation, a lot of things related to, and the services that we provided kind of ramped up because of
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
So, and so now I'm semi-retired, and just we operate some commercial rentals and things like that. So
Gotcha. Well,
mostly my
that's
wife.
so you came back and out of necessity almost set up a business. And what were you doing those kinds of oxygen systems out of the gate, or did your business kind of morph into that?
Oh, that was out of the gate. That was
Really?
an
Okay.
intentional. The company I work for did some services that the company that I founded did. We kind of expanded on that, but we, you know, I ran that company for I think 25 years. So
Wow.
yeah, and
So
made very little money in the beginning. So
as most companies do, that's most small businesses fail fairly early and fairly
yeah,
often.
we were close
Were you?
lots of times.
Yeah. So did you weave in different types of adventures either yourself or as a family while you're growing a business? Because I know personally, growing a business ain't for the faint of heart.
Right.
It's not easy. It can be all consuming at times. And so how did that play out for you over these, this 20-year gap from swimming to, doing the 20 years for your son to
Yeah.
graduate and
20 is about right. But so, you know, in my 20s, I worked for someone else. I was finishing college and worked for someone else, and then lived in Breckenridge. And then mostly in the 30s, had started that company, you know, with the bank's money. I was newly married, and we started to have kids in my 30s. I didn't do much of anything except for as a family in my 30s.
Mhm.
But in my 40s, I was able to get a little more stability, a little more time, you know, working a few less hours, and able to get outdoors and start hunting again. And that was a big thing.
Okay.
So I hunted growing up with my dad and didn't hunt again until I was probably 40.
Oh, wow.
So there's a big gap in there.
Yeah.
You know, I bought my first bow when I was 13, and started, you know, rifle hunting again in my 40s, and then I took up archery about 3 or 4 years ago, and have really enjoyed that. So,
That's
but,
cool.
but
So you had this dream along of hiking the AT. Did in this 20 years while you're growing the business, did you do backpacking trips?
towards the end, I
Yeah.
did with my brother, and I have some friends, you know, here. My brother-in-law, Bart Savaggio, he joined me in the Whites in New
Okay.
Hampshire, and I've backpacked with him several times before that, and with some of our, you know, group of friends around this area. We've done some backpacking, Smokies, and general areas like that, I guess, not too far away.
Yeah.
But he was great to come up to the Whites. And again, true to form, my wife gave me a hard time about this. Like, don't kill my brother. The heat index when we were in the Whites in New Hampshire was 100 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and we were hiking hut to hut because he came up with no tent,
Okay.
no sleeping bag, no And there's about 8 huts in the White Mountains. And I think we stayed about 4 of those. But we had a 19-mile day and a really hard 15-mile day in some really hot weather, and with not a lot of water in that area too.
Yeah.
I mean, there was always a hut in between the 2 huts, the hut that we left from and the hut that we, stayed at.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I could do that section of the AT a lot better the second time. I know what I'm doing now.
You know what you're doing.
And
so it sounds like you were northbound. Is that correct?
oh yeah, I started in, let's see, March 13th at Amicalola Falls or Springer Mountain. A lot of people don't know this, but you have to hike 8 miles to get to 0.
It's not
Which
very
doesn't
nice, is
seem
it?
fair.
No.
And I initially thought, I'm not doing that first 8 miles. That's silly.
Right.
And then you kind of hear like, there's a little bit of pride, and you need to do that first
You
8
got to do
miles.
it. Yeah.
And I think they discourage you from, driving up to the top of Springer Mountain and starting there. I'm not really sure. So I started at Amicalola Falls and, got registered and did the whole thing and hiked, a short day like you're supposed to in the beginning. And the second day I hiked 22 miles like you're not supposed to do, which was quite a grind because there was bad weather, like thunderstorms coming in on day 3. So I tried to get out ahead
That's
of
a
it.
tough section to do 22 miles out of the gate too.
Yeah. And I was nauseous. I didn't even want to eat my dinner. I was so nauseous. It was like, I've not been nauseous from exercise since I was a swimmer, I think. So, but it was a good way because they did have thunderstorms on day 3 on the top of Blood Mountain.
Yeah.
So I was happy that I had done it after I was done because then I had an easy third day. And then I kind of got in the groove of going about 20 miles a day. And then the weather, I got very fortunate with weather this year. I had 1 snow day, 1 day in the teens, 1 night in the teens. Other than that, it was pretty mild and pretty cool. We had some hot days through Virginia and hot days up in New Hampshire, but most all the nights were 60s or lower, great sleeping temperatures. I slept in a tent rather than shelters.
Okay.
I sleep better like that.
Yeah.
And, you're not dealing with mice or snoring and things like that. And I don't know, my wife also, she supported me she had 27 boxes of food. And we kind of had a plan of different hostels and post offices and things like that she would ship them to. We pretty much had to adjust 2 out of 3, but at least
Because of
we
timing.
timing, like, if I got to a post office on a Sunday, I needed an alternate place to pick it up. She did find, this will probably have to be deleted from the podcast, but there's a post office lady, nicest lady ever, that she put the box behind the post office so I could pick it up on a Sunday. That's probably breaking some federal law.
Maybe so.
But I'm here to tell you, I'm not going to say what town that is, but some lady in Pennsylvania at a post office is the nicest lady I've ever met. So, or my
really
wife
cool.
ever spoke to.
So you're starting in March. That is, I mean, that's a normal-ish time, but it's early enough coming through Georgia and North Carolina that you can get some really bad weather.
Yeah. And there has been in the past. We just got lucky this year. I had enough rain that I seemed like I always had water when I needed it. Every 4 to 8 miles, I was crossing a stream, and not so much rain that, I mean, if I hiked in the rain more than 15 days, I'd be surprised.
Okay.
So, which is less than, and maybe I hiked 20 days in the rain, but light rain, nothing. So I really got lucky with the weather.
How long did it take you to plan all of those kind of logistics for the trail?
Little by little, I couldn't tell you how many hours I put into it, but I nerded out on an Excel spreadsheet.
Did you really?
Oh, I made it into a Google Doc so I could adjust it, Google spreadsheet or whatever, and so my wife could see it and see the different sections. But it had in there how many miles I was going to go each day. which changed every day practically, and where my stops were. And then, do I need 4 lunches, 4 breakfasts, and 4 dinners? Or do I need 5 dinners or whatever? And then she would just adjust if, say, I went a little slower than I expected or a little faster than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
And she came up and visited me 6 times on the trail too.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, 3 of them were easy, like the Nante Hill Outdoor Center.
Yeah.
That's probably an hour and a half from my house. And then Hot Springs, probably an hour and 15 from our house. And then she went up to Damascus, the middle of Virginia, where I met up with a cousin that we hiked a bit too together. Okay. And we met up with my brother. My wife came up and saw my brother and had some family time. I have a few cousins up there in the middle of Virginia. And then Harper's Ferry, which is a great town. That's the first time I've been to Harper's Ferry. And as a West Virginia native, I mean, it's probably growing up in Parkersburg, West Virginia, I bet that's a 5 or 6 hour drive from Parkersburg. Yeah. It's a long ways out on that eastern panhandle. And then she came up to Killington, Vermont too.
Okay.
So good spots.
Yeah, those are really good spots. What surprised you the most about being on the trail for the 3 or 4 months that you were out there?
I wouldn't say it's a surprise, but I didn't really meet any weirdos. 99.9% of the people were super cool. And, they all had their different agendas and different, reasons for being on the trail. And a lot of people were 18, 22, or 65.
Yeah.
And me at my age, I was, 56. There weren't as many people that were taking a gap year out of high school or college or just retired at age 65. Mm-hmm. But I did meet and hiked with some groups of all ages. So I hiked with go ahead.
No, tell me.
I hiked with a guy that was 67 years old that had 2 knee replacements within the last 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And he did fantastic. He was actually a fast hiker and no knee problems at all.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah. And next year, the rumor is there's going to be a 90-year-old that's going to attempt it.
Oh, jeez.
So,
yeah.
A guy named Graybeard.
Graybeard?
And
that's interesting.
I think he's done it multiple times, so I'm not going to bet against him. So
that's incredible. Cool. Yeah. I've talked to and even interviewed a couple people that have thru-hiked the AT, and I mean, any of these long distance trails, you get characters out there, and you get a lot of people moving, running towards something. They're trying to accomplish a thing. Every now and then you get somebody out there that's running away from something and they're looking for an escape. And one of the guys I just interviewed last week, he thru-hiked the AT last year. Mm-hmm. And he said there was only one guy that he came across that, like the spidey senses went off. It's like, something's just, he doesn't fit exactly. He's got a backpack, but he doesn't look like the other backpackers. And he said for him, it was more about, they were worried about this guy's well-being. He just didn't look like he was taking care of himself. But there's certainly been, and there's been episodes on the trail that have been turned violent and dangerous. And, but either end of those extremes, it sounds like you didn't really come across anybody that made your spidey senses.
One guy.
Was it one guy? Okay.
One guy. And I was hiking with a guy whose trail name was Priest. Super interesting guy. Had a bachelor's degree in chemistry and biology, and then enlisted in the Army, became a Green Beret. Wow. And then he was a medic. Great guy to hike with, a medic.
For real.
He was 31 years old. And then he was also raising money for people to get out of Afghanistan, interpreters and people that he'd known when he was serving over there. So he had, like a QRD code on his backpack, and you could donate and so forth.
That's cool.
Wish I had that committed to memory, but he was behind me at the time, and I passed by a guy that was sitting in the weeds, and I said hello. And he had a bandana, and he kind of raised it up to cover his face and didn't answer. And he had a mean dog with him too. And he's sitting in the weeds. And I thought, So I just hiked a little bit faster.
A little faster,
felt like kind of a wimp. And then when I got into camp, Priest got there and he goes, "Did you see that guy?" And so I felt a little bit better that the Green Beret thought he was
Somewhere
dangerous.
close.
Someone
Yes.
tougher than me thought he was dangerous. So I felt okay about myself again.
Yeah. Oh my
I,
gosh.
the guy didn't follow me or anything like that. He just
Yeah.
was weird. So, and there was probably nothing, but could have been.
Could have been. Yeah. I mean, you're out in the middle of nowhere. Where were you? Do you remember about where on the trail?
I don't think we're in Maryland yet. I think we were in just south of Harper's Ferry in there.
Okay.
That's where I want to say that we saw that guy. I having a hard time remember now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what would you say was the hardest section or the hardest period of time that you had while you were doing this?
probably the last month. Both the trail was very rocky and hard. They say how hard the rocks are in Pennsylvania, but the rocks really continue all the way north.
Oh,
So,
do they really?
but yeah, and Pennsylvania was hard because of the rocks, and the rocks are maybe a little more pronounced there than some of the states north of there, but there's not a lot of elevation change in Pennsylvania, so you're still able to get through it. But the White Mountains are probably the most challenging in southern Maine, with northern New Hampshire and southern Maine, I think, are the most challenging.
Is that the hundred
Before
mile
that,
wilderness?
it's not as bad as a lot of people think. The beginning of the 100-mile wilderness was challenging, but I hiked with a guy that did it in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
So he was a better hiker than me. Most of everybody I hiked with was younger and faster than me. I just got up early in the morning. so, so
So you,
I truly started hiking even with, in the southern states. I was with a headlamp the first hour because I
gotcha.
like to hike in the morning. I like to
Yeah.
have maybe 14 under my belt before lunch,
Yeah.
and then the rest felt like gravy.
Yeah.
And then once you got far enough north, just like Alaska, the latitude's so high, and plus Maine is so far east. Sunup is probably 4:20. You
Oh
don't
my
need a
gosh.
headlamp.
Was it really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
So the last day, spoiler alert, my hike up Mount Katahdin, I was making my coffee at 3:20 in the morning. And I was like a 5-year-old or 6-year-old on Christmas morning.
Just couldn't
I was
wait.
up at like 2 something in the morning, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Okay, might as well go." And so I was at Katahdin at the top at 7:30 in the morning.
Oh my gosh. Are you serious?
And I was not the first one there, which
Wow.
is yeah,
Well,
there
I
was a
found
group of yeah.
again, I Google searched you and your local master's website has like on their blog some pictures of you on Katahdin.
Oh, that's
And
funny.
yeah. And so there, and there's a video, like you did a selfie video from the top
Yeah.
and there's a bunch of people up there. I had no idea that it was 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, that group beat me. It was a group of kids at camp. There's a lot of camps up in Maine,
Hmm.
and one of the fun things that they will do with this was 16-year-olds, and they're all very nice kids. And so I was up there taking their pictures and stuff like that. So I served a purpose, not just selfishly like getting my picture taken with the
Yeah.
sign at Katahdin. But
Well, I
uh,
see that picture too. I mean, the view. I
uh,
knew Katahdin was rocky and high and difficult to get up, but I mean the landscape and of your pictures, I don't know that I've ever seen it like that. It just
Katahdin
looks
was beautiful.
massive.
I lucked out with the day that I had. It was
Yeah,
clear.
yeah.
And I lucked out. Those kids took off at 3:30 in the morning.
Okay.
So they beat me. And there was another guy that beat me that was already gone, beat me. I wasn't like trying to race. I just wanted to get there. I didn't even sweat that day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because it, I would say that hike was challenging as far as like almost like a rock climber in
Hmm.
portions, but not strenuous like some of the other sections that where the uphill just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
This was 5 miles, 5.5 miles. I forget what it was from Katahdin Stream Campground, which is where most people camp. Let's see, that is not the exact site for the thru hikers, but it's beside Katahdin Stream Campground. And then, so I was, hiking early in the morning before the sun made it warm at all.
Hmm.
And then I was going downhill after that. So,
Now there may be some like expectation protocol, but if you're going up and coming back down to the same spot, did you carry your bag all the way?
oh, no, I did a day pack. That's,
Gotcha.
yeah, and there was, yeah, try to not judge anybody's journey, but people do this in all different fashions.
Yeah.
Some people go the traditional way is go northbound from Georgia to Maine and carry your pack the whole way. Some people do what's called slack packing,
Mhm.
and their pack will be up ahead of them, and they'll take a shuttle back and forth, and they'll put all the miles in, but they're not always carrying their backpack.
Yeah.
And it's a great way for someone to do it that otherwise might struggle with a backpack or something. So like I made friends with 70-year-old man and woman friends, and she was a pretty small lady, and she was slack packing most of it.
Yeah.
She was a great hiker, but I wouldn't want to have to carry a backpack at her size.
Yeah.
So, and it was a great way for her to do it. What became very popular in the last few years is for people to start in Harper's Ferry in April, hike north, and then make their way, fly or drive down to Harper's Ferry, and then go south once they finish the northern section.
Yeah.
What do you call that? A bounce, not a bounce
Flip
back.
flop.
Flip flop. Thank you.
Yeah.
All these hiker terms, I'm already losing them. So, and a guy that I hiked with at the end, through some of New Hampshire and Maine, he's a bounce back. So he's doing 4,400 miles.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And he's a YouTuber and paying for his whole trip, and he's a great hiker. He's way better than me. But
That's cool.
yeah,
I don't know that I've ever heard anybody doing down and back.
yeah.
If you had to do it over again, would you go southbound or would you flip flop?
I think the trouble with southbound is the availability of water.
Yeah.
And I think I got so lucky with the weather that northbound was the way I would do it again.
Yeah.
So, and I
Well,
carried my pack the whole way except for the last day.
yeah.
I would do that too. It's just what I chose to do. Is the more I didn't have any logistics to think about. Just getting my boxes at towns and so forth from my
Mhm.
wife, and meeting up with her. And I met up with a college roommate a couple times on the trail, and meeting up with my brother-in-law in the Whites and my brother in the Shenandoah. Those logistics of knowing that my brother-in-law had a flight to get up to meet me at the Whites, like that becomes a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, you mentioned it a second ago, but the mantra that I've heard over and over again around the trail is you hike your own hike. That
yeah,
there's such a big part of the culture of no judgment to anyone about how they do
right,
anything.
for sure.
And it just, I think, creates a level of accessibility too, that anybody can do anything.
Yeah,
You do however you need to make it work. And so I really appreciate that about the trail, and the people that I've met being around the Appalachian Trail are some of the most unique people I've ever met in my life. Just
mhm.
genuine, authentic, but unique in a lot of different ways. So did you end up hiking? And I know you started and ended at different times, but did you end up hiking with what some call your trail family, like a group that you kind of globs together, or was it a lot more splintered?
It was splintered for me. I
Was
started
it?
with a guy named Relay, who was 23 and a much faster hiker than me. So I hiked with him in the first couple weeks. But when I say I hiked with him, I mostly just camped with him because I got
Mhm.
up 2 hours before him, and he would pass me, and then we would see each other camping. But then, I'm meeting up with my wife and taking a zero, and then he went on. He
Yeah.
finished in something like 85 days or something
Wow.
ridiculous. Yeah, he was a fast hiker. We would hike together a little bit, and he'd
Mhm.
say, "Okay, I'm going to stretch my legs a little bit." And then it'd be like less than a minute and he's out of sight.
Yeah.
And then through Virginia, I hiked with a great group of all ages. I really enjoyed that group, but people, hike their own hike and they're meeting up with family, and I'm meeting up with my family too. So a lot of groups break up because of meetups
Yeah.
in my case. But I was, when you say hike your own hike and no judgment, I had enough solitude and enough camaraderie, a great balance. You know, Sometimes you're seeking solitude, and some hikers probably seek more than others. But, and then for me, I was getting plenty of solitude while hiking by
Yeah.
myself typically, and then lots of camaraderie when you get into camp. And I usually camped with my tent at a shelter site where there were
Yeah.
8 people or so.
Yeah.
And so you can BS around
Yeah.
campfire or no campfire, but when people are making their dinner and things like that, getting water and all the camp stuff.
Well, I
But
think you have lived out what this concept that I mentioned earlier, the everyday explorer. But in my mind, that is somebody that is, has a normal day job, has a normal family life, and
right.
something that it takes up most of their time, but they still find these spots in their life to go pursue and push and
Hmm.
try and suffer and so I think the way it's played out for you, maybe more so in the recent years than early in your own family as the kids were growing up. But what what have you? Was there one particular thing that when you finished that was like a theme that you took away from being on the trail for a few months?
I, I was given this advice by an old guy that was hiking. It's not always fun. And if you ask yourself, are you having fun? You'll probably quit because there's a lot of miserable days out there, but it's always an adventure. So, adventure doesn't mean fun. And some of the most miserable days are the biggest adventures when you look
Yeah,
back at it.
yeah,
Hiking through Grayson Highlands, I got
love it.
unlucky with some weather there.
Oh, did you really?
And yeah, it's rainy 35, which is like, I'd rather it be 25 and snowing than
Yeah.
rainy 35. And, I was cold, cold and wet, wet. That's when I realized the first rain jacket that I had kind of soaked through pretty well.
Okay.
So
Bad time to figure that out.
I switched that out,
Yeah.
and that was a cold, cold, miserable day. Well, a couple of days really. And but that's memorable and that's part of the adventure.
Yeah.
And so I would say, giving someone advice that wants to do the AT is, it's an adventure. It's not for fun, it's for an adventure. And some of those days are miserable. Some of those, days are lots of fun. So
And the misery and suffering part of it to you, it sounds like it was part of the equation that you did you know you were signing up for that? Did you know it would be?
oh yeah, I'm a guy that enjoys kind of the grind.
Hmm.
Back when I was a swimmer, you would train to the point of nausea, and you'd finish practice and go to dinner and not even feel like eating.
Yeah.
I hadn't felt that for a long time. And there's going to be easy days on the trail. You're going to end early and you're going to have zeros that are fun and restful. But then, you embrace that just like you embrace the days that are where you need to get somewhere because of weather moving in, and you got to go an extra 5 miles that day, and
Mhm.
maybe warm weather or maybe some big elevation changes.
Yeah.
And those days are quite a grind, but you feel good when you're done, and you
Yeah.
feel good about like the next day when you think about what you did the day before. You're a little bit proud of your accomplishment, and you're being able to push through. So
Yeah. So, having those lessons taken away from the trail, what does that mean for you? Or how do you see that kind of weaving itself into your life right now that the trail's done and for anything that you're thinking about to do next?
I don't have any plans for a 3.5 month adventure, but I'm also have a son out in Colorado, and I plan on going elk hunting
Oh, in
out
October?
there. I did that last year and got my first archery elk.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
And I would
That's
say
impressive.
some of the hiking that we did for that was the hardest hiking I've ever done.
Really?
We
Did you
hiked,
do it around Avon or did you go somewhere else in the state?
it's more north of Gypsum. So a little bit west and north in the Flat Tops Wilderness area. And so you have the elevation at like maybe 10,000, 11,000 feet
Hmm.
and very rocky, and you're not hiking on trails,
Yeah.
maybe game trails,
Yeah.
but you're hiking in the dark in the
Is that
morning.
near like Marble and kind of on the Aspen side? No, I've seen
It's
it.
no, it's a north of I-70.
North of I-70. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
north of I-70, kind of on the way to the wow, I'm drawing a blank for the area, but it's
Rocky Mountain National Park.
yeah, exactly. If you were to keep on going north, you get to the Rocky Mountain National Park,
Okay.
and it's the largest elk herd in the world up there. And so they don't have, if you're a trophy hunter, that's not where you want to go. I mean, all elk are big and have huge antlers, and people encourage you hunting bulls, mature bulls, rather than cows.
Mhm.
And the bulls have a lot more meat than if because the first elk I got was 180 pounds of meat.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, exactly.
Jeez. And you
and
gotta
it's delicious. So
you gotta clean it and carry it out immediately. So do you
luckily we had horses and
yeah,
mules.
okay. All
So
right. Yeah.
yeah. So
I've got
it's not like some of the hunting shows.
right. I've got some buddies that live out there and I've gone to their elk camp a couple of years. It's a
Uh-huh.
little further west of where your son
Okay.
lives, kind of west of the Aspen area.
Okay.
But I mean, it's strange how the elk behave because I've been out there in the summer and I came across one valley and there's this black blob on the other side of the valley. And you're like, what is that? And then it starts moving. You're like, oh my gosh, that is thousands of elk on
Oh
the
yeah.
side of, and they're out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, they're out in the open. And then October comes and they are ghosts. They are
Yeah.
giant ghosts that just
Yeah.
disappear. And I'm not a big hunter, but my buddies that do hunt every year, that's part of the game.
Yeah.
You hear them bugling, you go try to find them, and for you to get close enough without spooking one to shoot it with an arrow, that's impressive.
Well, you actually draw them in by bugling
Yeah.
and by raking, like challenging it to a fight. So it came to me. And so I shot the elk last year at 43 yards.
Oh my God,
Um,
that is
uh,
so
and
close.
he was coming in to fight me
Really, he was
because,
coming in
yeah,
hot.
because he thought successfully that I was an elk that wanted
Hmm.
to fight him. Their vision is not their best sense, their smell is. And as long as you are not downwind, or as long as the wind is in your face, as long as you're
Hmm.
downwind of the elk and the elk can't
Hmm.
smell you,
Hmm.
he's gonna, and you're not moving around and being erratic and stuff like
Yeah.
that, he's gonna keep coming. So
Wow. What'd you do with all that meat?
I'm still eating it. I gave away a lot. I gave
Yeah.
away a lot, and then eat a lot. So when my kids were here and everything, we usually killed 2 whitetails per year and ate them pretty fast. And now I'm an empty nester. So, and my wife doesn't eat as much meat as me.
Okay.
So it takes a little longer to get through. So we're still eating
Does
it.
it?
So
Good. So, I think we've kind of hit on a lot of these different things, and I, having just met you, I still see the thread as you've talked through growing up kind of with an outdoors life with your dad, and then the grit and resilience that was really hammered into you through swimming for all those years of being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and still pushing through to a goal, which absolutely plays into what you just accomplished this year on through hiking 2,200 miles. Not many people do that, and a lot of people start and don't finish, and you did it. So I think it is interesting in all these stories that I hear about where's the thread. What is it the thing that allows people to do these kind of things? And it's never, well, I should say it's almost never. I was sitting on the couch and then all of a sudden I went and through hike.
Right.
There's always this expansion of the comfort zone of, sometimes over a lifetime, sometimes over many years that allow you to do that. So where you're at in the stage of life that you're at, empty nest in mid-50s, sold a business, you're not getting up and going to an office every day. What is it that you're framing next, even if it's not a through hike somewhere, but what do you see on the horizon for you that will be the next thing that you do to continue to stretch the comfort zone?
There's always going to be a kayak trip I want to do. So I hope I haven't kayaked the Gully in maybe 5 years. So I'd like to go back up there and do that this year. And that's a big river for me. So that's a challenge and that's fun. I'm missing out on elk hunting this year, but I'm planning one for next year.
Okay.
And then, there's, I do other kind of sports. Like I was actually signed up for a triathlon tomorrow.
Oh, really? Okay.
But for one reason and another, like I did have some little nagging injuries, like
Yeah.
ankles and feet, and I got a tick-borne disease called Ehrlichia.
I haven't heard of it.
And so that's
Is it like a Lyme disease
they said
type?
it's similar to Lyme, but not as bad for the long-term effects.
Okay.
I got, the fever and the early symptoms of Lyme.
Yeah.
So I went, I lied to the people at urgent care and told them I pulled a tick off myself just so I wanted to make sure that they did all the blood tests.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Lyme came back negative, but I came back positive for a disease I'd never heard of. So I learned the name of a new disease. So
Yeah. There's that.
Ehrlichia.
So is there any treatment for it? You just kind of have to.
Yeah, you take
manage.
the exact same antibiotic that you take for Lyme disease called
Okay.
doxycycline.
Yep.
And that makes you feel like crap.
Does it really?
So I had some, like I thought I did the same triathlon last year that I was going to do tomorrow.
Mhm.
And I did crappy on the run. So I thought, after I did the trail, I'm gonna really
Yeah.
kick butt on the run, but I didn't.
Which triathlon is it?
It's just a short one at Lake Lure.
Oh yeah, I've done that one before.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, and last year there was a swimmer that dragged off me the whole way, which I learned. I'm not a real triathlete, but I learned that that's legal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. In your
Well,
pool swimming days, you don't do that kind of stuff.
No, that's not cool.
Yeah, that's not cool.
So I was going to seek that person out and drag off of them the whole way, no matter what.
That's actually a race I did several years ago. And I mean, if you've done it before, it's through some pretty hilly parts for the bike.
Oh,
and I was coming down one and the road turned to the right. And before it turned, this guy comes flying past me. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was never a good bicycler. And so any of those big hills, I'm like riding the brakes and making sure I'm not going too much out of control. Well, he didn't. And that turn hit and he didn't turn. He just went straight into the woods.
There's usually a wreck every year.
Yeah. So
one of the last downhills.
I stopped, if I remember correctly. I want to think that I stopped. And he was down in the trees and was awake, but I couldn't do anything to help him. So I kept on the bike and got to the next aid station and told him where the guy had gone to the woods. And anyway, that was a gnarly experience for sure. But what'd you think of swimming in the lake?
It's a little warm.
Yeah.
So this time of year, I like to swim in water that's like 78 and I'm sure it's 84, 85 degrees now.
Yeah,
so
bath water.
It gets kind of warms you up a little bit too much by the end of that swim. So,
yeah. Well, it's guys like you that I hated being out there because it's the swimmers that make the swim look super easy and fast. And that was always a struggle. So,
well, I was a sprint backstroker, so I really didn't do great on long distance swims without turns. So, I'm not the guy you want to bet on.
Yeah. Well, I think he had some pretty good success.
Yeah, it was fun.
Even if you were a wolf packer, you probably saw on my shirt. Yeah, I'm a Tar Heel through and through. And,
Nice. Yeah. I had a lot of friends that were swimmers at Carolina. So one guy I roomed with in the summer was a swimmer at Carolina. Nice
cool.
guy. So
yeah, there are a few nice guys in Chapel. A few.
My wife went to Carolina, but
did she really?
But she's a nice person. So.
Well, Steve, I really have enjoyed this, and I've found with these conversations that if I get to connect with somebody on an adventure topic, we're probably like cut from the same cloth, right? I mean, we see things similar, and it doesn't take long before there's like a camaraderie, and the conversations usually flow pretty well. And this one was no different. So I say that with a lot of gratitude for you spending time with me on Friday afternoon and talking about your experience that I think is super cool. I hope you have some pictures or even videos that you'd be willing to share with me that I can put in the podcast page and
cool.
Show some of your experience. So
I have too many of them, and thanks for having me on. And you seem like a great guy. So to say we're cut from the same cloth is a nice compliment. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Okay, man, I really enjoyed that. I hope you did as well. The next one will be coming at you in a couple weeks, so stay tuned. Until then, I hope you have your own great adventure.